Hey! Well, yesterday, no. I have no excuses, none, because I don't need that excuses. I said earlier that I have a very busy summer, and I had a very busy summer, both planned and unplanned. And Josh is back at school for a week. He's doing his football practicing, and I'm working, obviously. There has been some sorrows. One of my good and dear friends passed away. I think I talked about that, and it's going to be time, and as simple as that. And I do thank everybody for their thoughts and their prayers, and it is, and this is a kind of a pithy way of saying it is what it is. He deserved a lot longer. The good die young, they say. He was one of the best. So, and then last week, or the week before, we were off camping, and we came home, and I found out that one of my aunts had passed away. She was 94, and she was a wonderful, wonderful lady who had a wonderful, wonderful life. Her husband passed away a few years before, my Uncle Albert, and he was 93 when he passed away. So they had a very long life together. They got married in Holland right after the war. So, there's a whole history there. And she was absolutely wonderful. And just to give a quick synopsis before we, start with tangents. I've said this, I don't know how many times, and I keep on coming back to it. I'm one of the most blessed and fortunate people that I know with the life that I've had thus far. And one of the biggest blessings I had and have in my life is that most of my family were just neighbors when I grew up. So Opa, granddad for you people who aren't Dutch, Opa brought the family over in 1948, right after the war. His sister came over in 1928, and there was correspondence between the two of them, and she said, come on over, I'll find you a sponsor, blah, blah, blah. Stuff happens. And so Opa came to Canada in 1948 with his 8 kids. I won't go into the details. I'm going to truncate this. There's bigger things and other things, but we'll just make it easy. 8 kids. My dad being the second youngest at 8 years old in 1948. Anyway, so they came to Canada, and they settled right here in Winona, not Stony Creek. Winona. They settled in Winona. So, and then they worked, and the whole family worked, and they earned enough money for Opa to buy a plot of land. So Opa bought a plot of land in Winona and grew flowers and sold flowers to people who wanted to buy flowers. So, and it was a nice piece of land, a nice piece of property right back then. And what had happened was that he Opa and Oma, my grandma and grandpa, decided to sell break up the plot of land and sell parcels of land to the kids should they want to build their own house. So the house that I grew up in, I was born in 1967, the house that I grew up in, my dad built. He was a bricklayer, and his brother, my Uncle John, was a framer, and the whole family came, and roofers and whatever, and so so there was a whole bunch of trades there, and my Uncle John's house next door. So Opa had his little house, and then my Uncle John had his house, and my dad had his house, right in a row. Opa, Uncle John, Aunt Jane and her kids, and my dad's house, my mom, dad, and us 3 kids. And across the field, on the other side, was my Uncle Albert and Aunt Joan. They're right there. So 4 of my immediate relatives are just in the same parcel of land, basically. And so I would walk to school, and I would go by Uncle Albert and Aunt Joan's house, and I would stop by, and my fondest memories of Aunt Joan, there's so many, is her house, because Uncle Albert was in the bulbs, because Uncle Opa was selling flowers and bulbs and stuff like that, and Uncle Albert was working with a company in Holland, and they would ship bulbs over here for Canadians to buy and grow their own tulips and whatever else they're growing up, peonies or whatever. I'm not a florist, but Uncle Albert had a whole bulb importing company from Holland that he worked with Holland, and they'd ship over bulbs. And so I would go over, and I would walk home from school, and on Saturday mornings, all his cousins would go over to. Okay, look, you don't have to try it. That's just Josh. We would go over there, and Aunt Joan had some of the flowers growing in her house. Like she had this beautiful little kitchen, and she had all these bulbs planted in little pots in the windowsill. So if you're doing dishes, because we always helped, you could look out and through the window and see, the beautiful front yard. But she had all these bulbs. Even in the middle of winter, there's blooming flowers in her house, and the smell still lives rent free in my. The memory of the smell of Aunt Joan's house absolutely lives rent free in my head. And she was just a wonderful, wonderful Dutch aunt to all of us kids. She adored all of us kids, and she loved us. She never raised her voice at us, even though we were, holy terror sometimes. And she was just a joy. Her son, my cousin Albert, would babysit us because he was so much older than the rest of us kids. So my mom and my dad would go out, cousin Albert would come over and babysit us kids. And so, and then as I said, they were right there. We'd pass the house all the time. And you just, when I was that young, you just take it for granted that that's the way it is. Your family is. My Uncle Bill was just down the street. My Uncle George and Aunt Nellie were over there. My Uncle Pete was in Grimsby. Like, it was just the whole family was right there. Like, we saw them all the time. We grew up with them, the birthday parties and the Christmas parties and the get-togethers and all that stuff. And so I got to grow up with all my cousins. We played tag, we played hide and seek, we played sandbox, we built tree houses, we built forts out in the field behind, because by that time Opa had sold the most of the rest of the land. It was left fallow. There's a word for you. And we would fly kites back there. And there was a big old chestnut tree that I won't even start talking about because I'm just miffed at modern day people who just don't care. But anyway, there's a 150-year-old chestnut tree that we used to climb all the time, and then we would get chestnuts and we would make chestnut necklaces. My cousin Kathy, who lived right next door, and we would have all this time and all this fun. And Aunt Joan was just wonderful part of that my whole childhood. She really was. And I only got to see her for the past, we'll say 20 or 30 years at Christmas time, mostly because that's the only time the family got together. So, and she lived out in Jerseyville with my cousin Albert. The family moved out there years ago. And although they still did Saturday morning coffees, the family, and so when Josh showed up, I went to Saturday morning coffee with all my uncles and aunts there. Sandy and I went with little Josh, who was like a couple months old, and Aunt Joan was there. And Aunt Joan, we have pictures of Aunt Joan holding little Joshua. That was 15 years ago. So I'm glad we got that memory. But anyway, so she's gone, and she'll be sorely missed by family. And but 94 is a fantastic age, and she had a fantastic life. So. So anyway, so that's my one of my very good and dear friends at 59, which again also makes you appreciate life, as they say, the finiteness of life, as people are wont to say. And so, my other problem with this whole idea of whatever, I've always lived my life the way I wanted to. I honestly, you have regrets. Like, everybody has regrets. Should I just turn left and I should have turned right? Whatever. But I learned at a very early age, I think in grade school, that I don't need to regret. Oh, I want to go back in time and change that. It's just that I learned from that and try not to do that stupidity again. So I've always lived my life the way I wanted to live my life. As you can see, nobody else had the ability to make me feel like the life I wanted to live, the fun I wanted to have, the things I wanted to do were inappropriate or I shouldn't appreciate it. And so this is how I've always lived my life. And because I was able to live my life even as a kid with the kite flying in the fort building, because Aunt Joan was right there. should I have any problems, I go running over to her house, and then, or I go running home, I go to Uncle John's house, I go see Oma and Opa. Like, I never had a concern in my life, in my entire childhood, because the entire neighborhood knew who I was, who my parents were, who my uncles and aunts were. I never had a problem. I never had a problem that would make me feel like I'm alone or unappreciated. And so that's how I grew up, and this is why I keep on saying how blessed because I know hardly anybody else had that. Some people did. I'm gonna say I'm not the only one that had close-knit family growing up, hanging out with your 20 some odd cousins all the time, and not having a worry, and not having a worry in the world. And my biggest concern was, you know, this is one thing my memories are, this is a tangent, whatever, another tangent. I couldn't have been 8 or 9 years old, and I would get a kite in the spring. Mom would go to the store, and because you could buy those $2.49 kites back then. The I Spy kite, if you remember the I Spy kites, they were just ubiquitous back in the day. A little Delta kite, not a Delta Flyer kite, but just a Delta wing kite that had the 2 big yellow and black eyes on it with a little tail hanging off. And she would get me one. Mom would always get me like an I Spy kite, because they were just, you bought them. And because there was a huge field behind my house, that's where I'm going to fly the kite. So, and a lot of times, this is always funny for me, is Terry, or my sister, and I would just, if it gets way up there, we would tie repeated spools of kite string. So it's been around one, tie another one on, and it'd be way up there. And then Mom, dinner, and then we would just tie the string to the treehouse in the backyard, and then we go inside the house, leave the kite up in the air. But one time, I'm out flying my kite, having a good time, feeding out the lines. And again, these are $2.49 kites. I mean, they were cheap. Though $2.49 back in 1974 is a little different than $2.49 now, but not much difference. Anyway, the kite string broke. The kite string broke, and it's way up there. Like, it's way up there. The wind was going east. And so I'm over here, and if you know the lay of the land, you know where Winona Road is, if you grew up in Winona, and there's the bridge, and that's where we lived, in that area. And then the other side of the bridge was the Explorer Inn, became Stop 50, and now, of course, it's where the Costco is, but who cares about the evolution of Winona? But anyway, I was not allowed as a kid to go past the bridge. I wasn't allowed. My parents, this is your block here, Winona Road to the house, and that block is where you don't have to ask, you can just play out there. But I wasn't allowed to go east of the bridge. And again, because I'm who I am, I never disobey my parents. Because I never had to want to disobey my parents. It never even dawned on me that I could disobey my parents, although they were not heavy-handed. So I'm flying the kite, the string goes, and that's way up there, and so it just starts drifting down, and it's just way past the bridge now. Like, it's way past the bridge, and I lost my kite. I had no idea that my Uncle John, living right next door, was watching me fly the kite. Hey, little my nephew Dave's flying his kite, and he's watching, and all of a sudden he sees the string break. So he, without me knowing, he goes out, and back then you don't hop in the car, he just goes for a walk. He goes for a walk across the field, over the bridge, and he has to go, like, basically back to Bridgman Farms, 50 Church, way back there, to find the kite. Like, it landed in the field, and so he finds it. And I'm home. Oh, my kite's gone. An hour later, Uncle John, knock, knock, knock. Hey, nephew Dave, here's your kite. What is this? This is the childhood that I had. I swear to everything that's beautiful and awesome. These are the memories I have about my childhood, and how fantastically wonderful they were because of the family and the friends I had growing up. And I will say this to the day I die. It hasn't stopped. Yes, there's more soap operas and issues and personal sorrows, but the friends that I have today and the family I have today are just as wonderful and awesome as I had when I was a kid, and basically most of the same people. So it's like, I have been blessed for so far, 57 of my years, with the sorrows, because that's part of it. As part of the understanding the finiteness of life and the appreciation that you have when stuff like this happens, and you say 94 is a great age, and I hope I get there. I don't see that. Well, I don't see why I wouldn't, because I'm relatively healthy and live a pretty clean life. But that's a fantastic life. But even my friend at 59, he had a wonderful life. It was tough, but wonderful. And so I keep on coming back to that I'm just going to keep on living. I'm just going to keep on living the way I am, because I cannot see until somebody comes to me and says, Dave, you know, you're the way you live your life is X, Y, Z is not right. And I'm going, well, you have to make the case, because I'm not just going to stop doing what I'm doing. And some people have tried in the past to say, you shouldn't be playing with Lego because you're an adult. And go, yeah, go screw yourself. Just because you think this isn't worthy of a 57-year-old to do, I don't care. I don't care. You have your hobbies. This is my hobby, and have a nice life over there. I don't need that kind of person in my life that has a problem with what I consider to be one of the most wonderful hobbies on the planet. And if they say it's like too geeky, I'm a geek. I've never not been a geek. My childhood played Dungeons and Dragons and whatever, and building whatever. I still build sandcastles. Sorry to burst your bubbles. If I'm at a beach, I'm gonna build a sandcastle. And be thoroughly enjoying it, because there's no problem with it. And the people who have the problem, and they can have the problem all they want. People can live their lives the way they want, and if they want to get all antagonistic about somebody else doing something they love, knock yourself out. Have a nice life. So anyway, that was a tangent. So anyway, I cleaned the Lego room. Yay! Sandy and I cleaned the Lego room today. So what happens is that we have this room was neglected for 3 months. Completely neglected for 3 months. You couldn't see the floor. I mentioned this, I think I mentioned a video, and I hope I made a video on it. But if you don't know, the layout, my classic space layout, Cassie space, is at the Brick Shack. It's been there since mid-August. I'm getting those stuffy, I think it was a little work I just did. It's been in there since mid-August, and it's going to stay there until mid-September. So if you want to go see it, if you want to, it's at the Brick Shack. And so I had to furiously and with a lot of flurry make some quick adjustments and whatever. So I was pulling out boxes and blah blah blah, and so the things were strewn about, as they say. And then more stuff came in here and blah blah blah. We had to clean up the rest of the house, so some more Lego. Anyway, so this room was a disaster, a bona fide certified disaster, and I was not happy with it. But I wasn't coming in here, so it didn't matter. But tomorrow afternoon we have some friends coming over, because again I have wonderful friends, and they are Lego friends who have never been here before. So I know that they're Lego friends, and they probably want to come and see the room. They might not want to, and that's perfectly acceptable. But Sandy and I, the basement was a disaster too, because we just got back from camping and everything else. So we cleaned and organized everything. There's nothing on the floor really right now, which is awesome. And everything's back in here, so that's a blessing. Although I still have 3 totes, 1, 2, 3 here. I have 3 small clear totes, and I still have a tote that my cousin gave me at the beginning of this year that I haven't even touched yet. To look at. So that's winter, because again, summer I'm outside a lot. Sandy and I are going for walks a lot, and camping a lot. So that's why there's been a bereft of videos on this channel. We're already at 19 minutes, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to stop this and start another video to talk about this that's on my desk right now. Just so I don't have an hour-long video to start back into the business. So I'm gonna put this on hold. Once again, I do appreciate those people who knew that about my sorrows, my friends and family, and they've reached out to me. Thank you very much. It is 100% deeply appreciated. And I was, again, blessed to have you guys in my life. But life does go on, and I'm gonna take my time to process these things. And but in the end, I have loving, caring, beautiful, awesome memories with both of them. So I'm blessed again. So anyway, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to start a new video. So just give me a sec.